2 months sober felt different in Jeremiah's body. He moved quieter, steadier, still himself, just truer. They promised each other nothing dramatic. Still, on day 60, Sheldon texted a single pin drop. Same spot, near sundown. The preserve wore its evening best, water silvered out, leaves backlit, the hush you only get when a day's done its work. They walked without touching until the trail opened at the overlook. Only the sound of falling water and a sky trying on gold. "How's the crew?" Sheldon asked. "Russell says, I think with my hands now." Jeremiah smiled, small and proud. "I like being tied for a good reason." Sheldon nodded, like he'd been holding that answer for weeks. "I like you tied for good reasons." They stood there long enough for the light to change again. When Sheldon finally spoke, it came out plain, as if rehearsed and stripped for parts until only truth remained. "I keep trying to name this something I can live with," he said. "Convenience, escape, phase. Every word dies in my mouth." He exhaled, looking at the water, not at Jeremiah. "I love you." Jeremiah didn't move, didn't blink. The words felt like a prayer answered. "You don't have to say it back," Sheldon went on, almost wry. "In fact, maybe you shouldn't. I'm married. I'm a father. A coward some days, a fool on others. But I need you to know what thing has been running my days." Jeremiah swallowed. "Say it again," he said, voice low. "I love you," Sheldon said, softer now. "In the way that makes me want better for you than a studio apartment. In the way that makes me choose a horse trail over a bed, because I don't want you to look back and think all we ever did was hide. Then stop hiding. For an hour at a time, I can," Sheldon said. "For a life, I don't know yet. I'm trying. I don't expect you to wait forever. I don't deserve it. But I'm asking for today." Jeremiah turned to him at last. "Then be here today," he said. "No lies, no client talk, no money on the dresser. Just stand next to me and say it like you need it." And Sheldon did, once more, close to Jeremiah's ear, where the water almost stole it. But Jeremiah didn't say it back, not then. He tucked the words away for safekeeping, until his heart could trust them completely. When they parted, there was no kiss, only a look that said they had crossed a line they could not uncross, and for once, it was a line toward light. Denise sat rigid in the low-lit office, the manila envelope with the photo spread open on the desk between them, like an accusation. The investigator, a man with patient eyes and a slow, careful manner, watched her as if he could measure the next move on her face. "I want to do it myself," Denise said finally, voice tight. "I want to confront her. I want her to confess. I want it on record." The investigator folded his hands. "You want to wear a body mic?" he said, blunt but devoid of judgment. "Get her to speak on tape. Get the truth in our own voice." He paused, weighing the request. "It's possible. We can arrange a controlled setup. I'll supply a device, monitor from a distance, make sure you've got a way out if things go wrong." "Good. Set up for me. Make it look casual. I'll get her to talk." He nodded. "You let her speak. You don't bait her. If she incriminates either one of them, you have something the court can't ignore." Denise set her hands on the photos and looked up. "I don't want him in my life anymore. I gave up my dreams for him. I'm not going to leave with nothing because he's living a lie." Her fingers curled. "I'll do whatever it takes." The investigator's eyes glanced at her hands, at the coldness that had settled in them. He had a professional obligation to the law and an instinct for human danger. "There's one more thing," he said slowly. You said you wanted to be ready for anything. If by that you mean you plan to bring a weapon. Denise's face went stone. I will bring it, she said. I'm not taking any risks. The investigator's response was immediate and clipped. I won't be part of any operation where a client brings a firearm. I can't, legally or ethically, put myself on the line in that scenario. If you bring a gun, I withdraw from this case. I'm telling you that now. Denise's lips parted, anger and resolve mixing in an expression so quiet it was almost a threat. Then you either set the wire and you follow through, or you don't. If you won't help me, I'll find someone who will. He watched her a minute, the office clock ticking somewhere in the background. Finally, with a slow, weary nod, he reached for a pad and began to talk logistics, not how to hide a device, not how to carry a weapon, but when the contact would arrive, how he'd place a tail car at a discreet distance, what he could legally record, and how he'd document everything so a judge would accept it. Denise listened, but didn't relax. She had made a decision she could not unsay. The private investigator set the terms: professional, restrained, pragmatic, and then warned her again about the risks in measured tones. She left his office with the photos folded back into the envelope and a clenched jaw, already mapping the rest in her head. Outside, the evening felt cooler than it had the day before. Denise walked to her car without looking back. The envelope pressed sharp against her palms. She thought of the years she'd poured into a man who couldn't stay true, all the Sundays he was busy, and the proof that would set her free. She had a plan. She had a wire. And she made her decision about the gun. She would carry it, because there were things the world had taught her to protect herself from. The investigator's last words, a warning more than a counsel, chased her as she started the engine. Don't let anger make the choices for you, he had said. If you want a victory, make sure it's a lawful one. Denise drove away into the dusk, the envelope on the passenger seat, like a secret she now intended to turn into evidence. The hunt had begun. The scent of cut lumber and fresh plaster hung thick in the air, sunlight pouring through the open frame of the house. Jeremiah knelt beside a set of floor joists, his chisel steady in his hands. Each strike of the mallet rang clean, sharp, carving out the joint the way Russell had taught him. This was it. This was what he lived for. The sweat on his back, the ache in his arms, the sound of something solid being built from the ground up. No smoke, no shadows, no lies, just wood and nails and progress he could point to. For the first time in years, he felt whole. When he straightened, wiping his brow, he caught himself smiling. There was nowhere else in the world he'd rather be, except with Sheldon. Or with Ania. Strange as it was, they had become his family. Not the one he was born into, not the one he lost, but the one he cobbled together out of survival and second chances. Sheldon, with his complicated rules and restless hunger. Ania, with her sharp tongue and quiet loyalty. Together, they were his anchor. He didn't know, couldn't know, what storm was gathering outside the frame of his new life. The truth Denise was hunting, the trap she was setting. For now, Jeremiah only saw the house taking shape, and in its bones, he imagined his own future rising with it. Denise stood in front of her full-length mirror, fastening the delicate chain of her necklace. To anyone looking, she was just another woman, preparing for an afternoon errand. Hair brushed into a soft wave, blouse neatly pressed, purse on her shoulder. Only she knew the weight of what rested inside her bag. The private investigator had met her in a parking lot 2 hours earlier, sliding the recorder into her hands like contraband. It's sensitive, he'd reminded her. You press here to activate. Keep your movements natural. And remember, if she pushes back, don't escalate. Let her speak. Denise had nodded, stone-faced. She wasn't nervous. Not anymore. She was determined. She pulled up to the studio complex, her heart steady as she killed the engine. From the outside, the building looked ordinary. Tired brick, paint peeling near the gutters. But Denise's whole marriage teetered on what happened inside those walls. The investigator's car was parked discreetly across the street. He gave her a nod as she stepped out, a silent reminder that he was listening. Denise climbed the stairs, her heels sharp against the concrete. She paused at the door, adjusted her blouse, and knocked. The shuffle of feet inside, a lock turning. Then the door creaked open to reveal a young woman, wide-eyed, wary, braids brushing her shoulders. Ania. Denise's smile was polite, almost warm. "Hello, sweetheart," she said softly, as though she'd come to borrow a cup of sugar. "Mind if we talk for a moment?" Ania hesitated, glancing past her shoulder to the empty walkway, then stepped aside. As Denise crossed the threshold, the recorder hummed silently to life. She would have her proof. Denise's voice sharpened until it cut through the small studio. "You're lying to me, girl. Don't play dumb. Tell me the truth." Amia's hands trembled. "I said leave," she warned, her voice laced with fear. "I'm not leaving," Denise snapped, stepping closer. "Not until you admit it. Not until I get proof of what you've been doing with my husband." And Yaya's chest rose and fell quickly. She backed into the kitchenette, yanked open a drawer, and pulled out a knife. The blade gleamed under the cheap overhead light. Her hand shook, but her eyes locked on Denise with sudden fire. "Get out, now, or else." Denise's heart hammered against her ribs. Her pulse roared in her ears. Her hand slipped into her purse almost without thought, brushing against the cold weight she carried in for protection. For a split second, time stretched thin, unbearable. Then the studio exploded with the deafening crack of a gunshot. The knife fell from her grip. Silence swallowed the room. And Yawa lay sprawled across the floor, blood spreading beneath her, like spilled crimson paint, her braid trailing into the widening pool. Denise stood frozen, her breath jagged, her ears ringing with the echo of what she had done. Denise pressed the photographs back into the envelope until the paper creased, hearing the investigator's voice in her head as if it were echoing from a dark room. "Don't bait her. Let her speak. If she incriminates herself, we'll have it on tape." Now she knew he had heard everything. The tape had caught her. The plan that had felt like justice had become a courtroom of its own in a tiny studio apartment, and the sound of that single, terrible shot had been the final, unforgiving proof. The realization hit like a physical thing, heavy, cold, utterly impossible to carry. Her mind ran in frantic loops. The children's faces at breakfast, Marcus practicing piano, Alana's crooked grin with toothpaste on her lip. She thought of the life she had surrendered for Sheldon's ambition, the classes she'd shelved, the nights she'd sat in pews and prayed for him to rise, and of the contract that now held her hostage. If she moved forward with the divorce, the prenup would take everything. If she didn't, she would live with the betrayal under her skin, the way it ate her like rot. She stared at the envelope in her hands and imagined every future, each one narrower than the last. Prison, public humiliation, the next headline, a hollow house where her children would remember her with whispers about why she left. The thought of that life felt worse than any reckoning. Panic made the room tilt. She thought, sharply, of the investigator's stern warning. Don't let anger make the choices for you. But anger had already made her choices. She had come here to catch a liar. She had come to claim what was hers. Now the proof lay heavy, wet, and irrevocable. She thought of Marcus and Alana again, and for one bright, awful moment she imagined them taken care of, whispered about, perhaps easier in other hands than in hers, behind bars. The calculation was quick, brutal. It felt like a final answer to a life suffocating under ruin. She moved without ceremony. The world narrowed to a thread of certainty that there would be no trial, no waiting rooms, or headlines, or the suffocating pretense of normal. In the span between the thought and the step, the room closed to a single point. Somewhere outside, the investigator's car idled. He had heard a muffled sound at first, a thud, perhaps, or the whisper of something giving way, and then silence that rang louder than any word. He moved toward the door, the recorder still in his hands. When he reached the studio, the door was ajar. Shouldered it open, and the whole world seemed to tilt into a frame of confusion. Denise collapsed. A hush over her face that could not be called sleep. The envelope spilled open beside her, the recorder in his hand, clicking to a stop, as if exhaling. He dropped to his knees, shaking her shoulder. "Mrs. Brown?" he said, voice small. She didn't answer. He checked for a pulse, and then, hands clumsy with panic, reached for his phone. His call to 911 felt like a shout into a canyon.